Welcome to a different video. This has been long requested. This will be my bookshelf tour. So sorry it's a bit choppy, but I've got to move the camera around from section to section. I will be pointing out books that I have enjoyed the most and maybe some that I am excited to get to the most. So I hope you enjoy the tour of my roughly 650 odd books. So the leftmost bookcase, on top of the bookcases are the books and DVDs that I don't reach for as much. On top of this bookcase is a couple of vampire series that I am a bit nostalgic for, that I read many years ago, but do not quite want to get rid of them just yet. We have the Rachel Caine Morganville vampire series, which is the really long 15 books one. You've got some L.J. Smith, which is the author of the Vampire Diaries. Now the Vampire Diary books are not very good, so I got rid of those, but kept her other books, which are a lot better. You can see the Nightworld series, which is a series which I have been waiting for the 10th and final book for literally like 15 years. And we don't know if we're going to get it because the author has had some health issues. We got the first 3 books of the Vampire Academy series and a Maureen Johnson book. Getting down to the actual bookcase, we've got some Raymond Feist and some Trudy Canavan, which are series which I picked up recently, mostly from charity shops. I like to have the series sort of complete before I start it, just in case I read the first one and cannot wait till the second one, and because I got those from the charity shop, I don't mind spending the extra little bit of cash to have them on hand just in case, and I like to keep my series sort of together, so that's where they're living for the moment. If I like them a lot, they might move to a more prominent place. On the left of the shelf are a few books which I am not sure if I'm going to like, but I would like to get to them at some point, so that's where those are for the adult fantasy. The second shelf down is on the right hand side. You've got the Wizard of Oz series, which are the nice colourful books. Next to it you've got the Wicked Quartet. I have read the first one. I wasn't hugely impressed, so I haven't got to those quite yet, but I would still like to. We've got next to those a few YA books. Going from the left, you've got Shadow and Bone and Crooked Kingdom, which I have read and enjoyed. You've got some Maggie Stiefvater. I haven't read the Scorpio Races, but I have read the Raven Boys Quartet, and I have read Call Down the Hawk, but I haven't finished that yet. You've got A Darker Shade of Magic, which I read recently. This Savage Song I haven't read. I have had a mixed bag with the Schwab, so I am apprehensive to get to it. The Vicious Duology, which I really enjoyed. Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, which wasn't my favourite. Caraval, which I have been meaning to get to. And then you've got Letters from the Dead, which I am hoping to read this spooky season, as well as The Diviners. A couple books which have had lots of interest in the present and in the past, and a couple ones that I haven't heard of outside, just in general actually. I haven't heard of Letters from the Dead at all. But I have heard of a couple on Book Talk and BookTube. I should point out that The left-hand bookcase is mostly YA, going into middle grade as we move further down the bookcase. So on these two shelves, starting at the top left, we've got the Maze Runner series, you've got Scott Pilgrim, you've got the Eragon series, the Inheritance Cycle, which I read the four main books, but not the companion book. You've got the Scythe series, which I have read and enjoyed. You've got the first two books in Patrick Ness's Chaos Walking, which about 15 years ago was a personal favourite for mine, and I am hoping to reread it at some point. I've got Patrick Ness's More Than This, which I acquired last year, and I'm hoping to read at some point. You've got another YA classic, Noughts and Crosses, which I haven't read. The Diabolic, which I have read, have enjoyed, and have not continued the trilogy, which is a shame. So I might have to get back into that at some point. You've got the Illuminae book, which is a mixed media type book. I really enjoyed that. I don't know if I'm going to continue, because people do say the first one is the best and the next two are kind of similar, and so I don't know if I enjoyed it that much that I'm going to really enjoy the next ones. And then you got Raybearer, which I have heard good things about, though I am apprehensive because I don't know if it's my type of writing style. So hopefully I will have a look at some point, and if it's not my style, hopefully I know someone whose style it is and I can pass it on to them. Going down to the bottom of the two shelves, we've got Children of Blood and Bone and its sequel, which I actually really liked. I do think the first book is better than the second book, but I am still intrigued to see how the trilogy is going to wrap up. Amari and the Night Brothers, which is amazing. I am waiting for the paperback of the second one to come out so I can grab myself a copy of that. You've got the Wizards of Once Last book, Never and Forever, which I grabbed when it came out because I had been reading the series on audio, due to the fact that the narrator is David Tennant and he is amazing at voices, but I literally could not wait for the audiobook to become available, so I grabbed a physical copy. You've got a classic YA series, the I Am Number 4 series. I read it when the books were coming out. As you can see, my books do not quite match in size. Unfortunately, I just had to grab what I could so I could read the books as soon as possible because I needed to know how that series was going to end. Hopefully one day I can get a full set of matching books, and I would like to reread it because I remember that series being a ride. In the stack at the top, we've got A Winter's Promise, a French book that has been translated to English, which I don't know if I've left it too late because I would like to read it in the winter, and now it is getting warmer and sunnier. And then you've got the Northern Lights series, as well as the first book of the companion sort of series, The Book of Dust. I've read the core trilogy. I have not read The Book of Dust yet. As you can see, it's quite a little bit bigger, and that is intimidating. Underneath that, we've got The Hunger Games, a classic series with ugly covers. And to the right, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And then you've got Hank Green's Duology, a good sci-fi series, especially since he is a debut author. That is his debut series. brother of John Green, who you've all probably heard of. He has written The Fault in Our Stars, which became a big movie. But Hank Green writes a good sci-fi new adult duology. Next to that, we've got the Night Vale books. You've got Welcome to Night Vale and It Devours, which is the sequel. I felt that they went really well next to Hank Green's books because it's got sort of similar energy, which is mysterious and slightly off-putting, mysterious entities. Next to it, you've got Patrick Ness's And the Ocean Was Our Sky, which is a very weird book about whales. You know, whales, the big creatures, not Wales, the country. And then you've got a couple of graphic novels. You've got the first volume of Saga, and you've got Watchmen. Saga, I have read all that is out, and I have enjoyed it. But Watchmen, I have not yet read, even though it is apparently good. I am hoping to read it, and then watch either the movie or the TV show, or both. I'm leaning more towards the movie because the TV show is longer. Don't Mind the Sun or the Plant. Coming further down, the first shelf is my Rick Riordan shelf. I don't know what I'm going to do because the man is relentless and will not stop coming out with books in this series, or I should say universe, because it is a collection of series. So on the left, we've got the Red Pyramid, which is his Egyptian trilogy, followed underneath by the Percy Jackson series, a couple of companion books on top of those. I am missing the first book in the Heroes of Olympus series because mine was in paperback, and I want to get a matching hardback to go with the others because I did get these as they were being released. So I have got the most of the books in the Heroes of Olympus series. I've got the Percy Jackson and the Greek Heroes and the Greek Gods books. I've got the 3 Magnus Chase books, and I have the first Trials of Apollo series. Not sure what I'm going to do once the shelf overflows. That is a problem for future me to solve. I read most of these. I haven't read the Trials of Apollo yet, and I haven't read the Greek Heroes one yet. But I have enjoyed Rick Riordan's books mostly. They have lots of humour in them, and the characters are always well written, and the friendships that are made along the way are excellent. Coming down a shelf, we have on the left the Cry of the Ice Mark series, a series which I read because it is one of my friend's favourite series, and it is a pretty good series about a warrior sort of princess in an ice land. There's talking snow wolves and magical creatures and the such. It's pretty exciting. Next to it, I have Pegasus and the Flame, which is the first book in that series. I have the first 3 of the series, which I read a long time ago and have yet to finish. I would like to see if it's a series I would like to finish because I remember them being quite good. Next to it, we have the Frostheart trilogy, which is a completed series, and it is amazing. The illustrations that are in the books are very good. If you haven't realized by now, this is the start of the true middle grade section. Next to the Frostheart series is Pages and Co., which is a book I haven't read yet. And then we got Keeper of the Lost Cities, which I have read and I'm in the middle of this series. And then Inkheart, I have read the first two. I can't remember the second one as much as the first one, and I haven't got to the third one yet, which I think is the fault of the cover, because as I was reading them, the third book came out with a different cover, and it made me not want to read it for very petty autistic reasonings. Next to this is the Lemony Snicket series, all 13 books with their amazing spines that connect with a thorny picture. This series is quite enjoyable. It's very fast to read, though the ending is inconclusive and open-ended, and I have yet to figure out if there is another series that links to it that gives more of a defined answer. If anyone knows for certain, please let me know so I can read them. Now we're right at the bottom, so I'm sorry for the bad lighting. Okay, so this is getting down to the books that I had when I was very young, and some books that are my partner's. Sorry for the cat interruptions. This is what happens when you're on the floor. So on the top left, we've got Eva Ibbotson, is how I want to say her name is pronounced. So you have got 5 which are sort of romances, and then you've got 3 which are more adventure. And then you've got the Angus Thongs and Perfect Snogging series by Louise Renison. Now, I read these when I was really young, like maybe 10, 11, and these were hilarious in my opinion, and I loved the series a lot. Next to it is a series that I also loved a lot. Ali Carter, her I tell you I'd love you, but then I'd have to kill you. I have the first, no, well, not even the first 3 books. I have 3 of the books, and then you've got 2 of her other series. And then you've got Etiquette and Espionage, the Pimpernels, and Emerald, which those 3 I haven't read, but I'm still clinging to the hope that someday I will. And then we have Skullduggery Pleasant, which I picked up again on my friend's recommendation. I recently read it and I thought it was a hoot. And then this is a series that is my partner's. This is Sabriel, Lyriel, and Apawson. I have heard good things about this series. I have heard bad things about this series. So I will just have to read it at some point and find out for myself. At the bottom, we have the Artemis Fowl series. I say series, it's some of the series. I owned some of the books. My partner owned some of the other books. So those are the paperback copies of some of the books. And then we have the I think it's the Spooks series. Again, these ones are not mine, but I might pick them up at some point. And then there is a break, and then we have Michael Morpurgo. I used to own a lot more Michael Morpurgo, but I have grown out of him, and I have kept my favourite ones of his that I have read. And then we've got some very, very young books. So like Cosmo and the Great Escape and Bedtime Stories. These are books that I had when I was very young, and it has scribbles in them all over the place. But they are there for sentimentality reasons. And then we have The Dreaming, which is a book I really didn't know where to place. It's a manga, one of the first manga I picked up at a Scholastic book fair. Still hoping that I will read the third book soon, because there is a bind-up of all three coming out, since these books are really difficult to get a hold of. And then we have the Mortal Engines series, all 4 books. I have read these. These are not mine physically, but my partner does not really like to own and look at books, so I have put his in with my collection, and we sort of share ownership of the books now. I enjoyed those books. They were pretty good. And that is the leftmost bookcase. And we are about a quarter of the way through. Sorry if anything doesn't quite match up to previously. I have taken a short break between bookshelf 1 and bookshelf 2. On top of bookshelf 2, I have a bunch of DVDs, which probably aren't very interesting, so I will just skip those. Now, the top of this bookcase is a little bit odd. On the left, you've got The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and a couple of extra books, The Silmarillion, and another one I can't quite read from here. On this shelf, I have read Kings of the Wild and The Secret History. Apart from that, these are the books which are my potential books. A lot of these are popular books that I've seen around a lot. They are the first in a series, most of them, and so if I like any of these books, I potentially have a lot more series that I can read. The second shelf down is my Brandon Sanderson shelf. So you can see I've got the Mistborn trilogy, which I have read. I haven't read any of his other books, but I am planning to get those at some point. To the left of that, I have got the last 2 books of the City of Brass trilogy, which I have read and I have really enjoyed those. And then you can see the start of my Robin Hobb collection. I have read the Assassin's Apprentice trilogy, the Farseer trilogy. I haven't read any further. As you can see, I've got the Ship of Magic and Fool's Assassin. Fool's Assassin because I managed to acquire that from my friend who found it at a charity shop. So I thought, it's in pristine condition, why wouldn't I pick it up now whilst I see it? Now the third shelf is again a bit of an odd shelf. I like to keep all of my sort of hardcore fantasy sort of together. So we've got on the left a bit of Joe Abercrombie. I have read The Blade itself, and I'm hoping to finish that trilogy soon-ish, maybe in April. And then you've got a chunky book, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, or Norrell. I would love to get to this at some point, but it is 1,000 pages long, and so it's quite the commitment, even though it doesn't look as chunky as it should for 1,000 pages. And then you've got a fantasy classic, Patrick Rothfuss's The Name of the Wind and The Wise Man's Fear. I have read The Name of the Wind. I have not read The Wise Man's Fear. I will get to it at some point, but I haven't yet. And now we come to my George R.R. Martin collection. As you can see, I have the UK Song of Ice and Fire series, which is 7 books long because they split 2 of the books into 2. I can now see that mine are slightly out of order, I think. Anyways, I have read that series, I have read Fire and Blood, and A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is on my radar for one that I want to read very soon. Now, because it's been a while since I filmed the leftmost bookshelf, I have moved around a couple of things on this top shelf. I have made space for A Day of Fallen Night, which you can see on the far right, and in doing so I have moved Circe and The Starless Sea to my leftmost bookshelf, both of which I have read and mediumly enjoyed. Here we have the majority of my Sarah J. Maas collection on the bottommost shelf, which I have read all of on that shelf. On the top shelf I have read everything except for A Court of Silver Flames. And then we have some more fantasy. I didn't do this on purpose, but looking at it now, all of the books on these shelves are books by female authors. We've got Babel, R.F. Kuang. We've got The Atlas Six and the Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake. I have read The Atlas Six, and the other 2 are highly anticipated by me. We have Becky Chambers. We've got The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and the companion books, as well as her short novella To Be Taught If Fortunate, which I recommend wholeheartedly. 10 out of 10 if you are interested in sci-fi and aliens. It's only like 110 pages, and I think everyone should give it a shot. And then we have Samantha Shannon. We have her sort of dystopian, fantasy-ish series set in London, and now with the 4th book, France and some of the wider reaches. And we have The Priory of the Iron Strait and A Day of Fallen Night. Unsure whether I'm going to swap those books around yet, considering A Day of Fallen Night is a prequel. And I have read all of Samantha Shannon and all of Becky Chambers. They are on my list of top authors I will always buy from. The second shelf, not doing so hot. Apart from the Sarah J. Maas books, I have only read A Discovery of Witches, which I do not highly rate. It was okay. I have the second book, which I found at a charity shop for quite cheap, and so I will get around to it at some point, but it's not a priority. Getting down lower, we get into the sort of merge from fantasy in the top right into my romance sort of section. It's a bit of an odd mix. As you can see on the bottom shelf, there are some fantasy novels in the right hand side also. I have done this because I have a lot of middling sized books. As you can see, a couple of books like Wondersmith and Hollowfox are hardback, but they are not full-size hardback. They are like medium sized, so bigger than a paperback but smaller than a hardback, so they fit on these sort of like 3/4 length height shelves. And I have maximized my bookcases to fit the most amount of books in a physically appealing way. So I will sort of split this up into the fantasy parts of the bookshelves and then go into the romance part of the bookshelves. So in the top right, we have the Guinevere Deception by Kirsten White. That trilogy, I've read the first one. I would like to read the second ones at some point this year, because I am trying to finish off some of those series that have been lingering for a bit too long. We have Patrick Ness's The Rest of Us Just Live Here, which I enjoyed a lot, and so I got myself a copy. As you can see, it's an old library copy which was bought online. And then next to that is the Bear and the Nightingale trilogy, which I have all three of those are signed. I enjoy that. Definitely, if you want a wintry, atmospheric read, I would recommend that trilogy. Next to it is my favourite middle grade series at the moment, which is the Nevermore, The Trials of Morrigan Crow series. I might try and see if I can get the first one in hardback, just because I've got the second and the third one in hardback, and I will be getting the fourth one when it comes out later this year in the hardback. I can't show you at the moment, but the underneath the dust covers are the most beautiful hard covers I think I've seen. And next to that is Legends and Lattes, the indie pub cover version. Going down a shelf on the far right, we have The House in the Cerulean Sea, The Night Circus, and The Toymakers, which I have read all three of those. We have the first book in the Outlander series, and The Miniaturist, which I haven't read, and then we have the Ex-Hex, which I have read. Going back up, we have Loveless by Alice Oseman, which I've read, American Royals, which I haven't read, and then we have my John Green collection, Abundant Caprins, Paper Towns, Let It Snow, Looking for Alaska, The Fault in Our Stars, Turtles All the Way Down. In there is Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, and Rainbow Row. A couple of them probably won't make favourites if I reread them, but they have sentimental and nostalgic sort of feelings for me, so I will not be getting rid of those. And speaking of sentimental, I have Things I Know About Love, which is snuck in just to the left of that. One of the sort of first romancy books that I read when I was in secondary school. And so I found myself a copy and I keep it on my shelf now. And then we have The Afterlife of Holly Chase, which is a weird Christmas novel, which I might be rereading this Christmas because I have mixed feelings about it. The ending really saved it, and I would like to see what my feelings are on the rest of the book, knowing the ending now. And then we have The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is a massively popular book by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Definitely on TikTok, even though I read it back when TikTok wasn't as big as it is, and BookTok definitely didn't exist. And then we have the Heartstopper graphic novels, which I thoroughly enjoy. Going down, we have a sort of mix of genres, because we have Fight Club and The 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out of a Window, A Life of Pi, All the Light We Cannot See. I've read Fight Club, haven't read the rest. And then we have an Agatha Christie just all slotted in there. We have Ordeal by Innocence. Weird place to put that book, but I really don't have any other place to put it. This is where I put my contemporaries. So romance is mostly contemporary, and so I don't have anywhere else where a contemporary book would really fit. And then we have the books being a Wallflower, Daisy Jones and the Six, Book Lovers, The Switch, The Kiss Quotient, The Heart Principle, The Hating Game, Love Hypothesis, Love on the Brain, One Last Stop, and Red, White, and Royal Blue, which are all sort of romance books. Definitely very popular titles. You probably have seen these around a lot. I'm not one for branching out when it comes to my romance because I read majority of fantasy, so if I want to sort of switch up genres, then I'm really looking for having a good time. And the popular stuff works for me. And then we have The Duff and Shutout, which is going more into the young adult sort of end. These are my two that I read in my teenage years, which I have kept. And then we have Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, which I thought was amazing. And The Hate You Give, which is a book I think all teens should read. Snuck in there is Devil Wears Prada, which I don't know where it came from, but I own it and I would like to read it. And I have seen the movie, so it will be going on my adaptation board. And once again, apologize for the weird angle. We are right at the bottom of the shelf. There is one shelf left. I'm sorry it's a bit shaky. I am actually holding this. So here we have a bit of a mismatch of books. On the left we have a couple of books which are from my partner's collection of books that he kept from when he was younger. I'd like to read a bunch of them. We have Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I have read the first one in that series. I'm unsure about it. I would definitely like to read one more book before I give up on the trilogy. Well, I think it's more than a trilogy now. But before I give up on that series as a whole, we have the Divergent trilogy, which I know ruined a lot of people's lives when it came out. We have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Lots of people would be displaying that one a lot higher up on their bookshelves, I know for sure. But I thought it was only okay. And then we have the Cinder series. The first one, which is missing because I have lent it out. Those books are light-hearted, fast-paced, definitely a good one if you want sort of a palate cleanser, if you will. And then we have my big bind-up of The Chronicles of Narnia and another book, Chandra's Secrets, which I read when I was about 11 years old. Here we are again at the tippity top of my rightmost shelf. Hang on, let me just... So at the top we have got the Wheel of Time series. I have read the first book. This series is very long and I feel like I don't have the proper time commitment available to fully invest myself in this series at this time. Underneath that we've got the first and third book of the 5th season series by N.K. Jemisin, which I haven't read yet. We have a mixture of books from the Malazan series. I have been picking them up from a local charity shop, and I will be hopefully getting to the first one soon. We have Dune, which I do not like. Don't try and convince me otherwise. We have Children of Time, which I do like. If you want to root for some spiders, then that's the book for you. we have the Red Rising trilogy. I have read it, I have enjoyed it. I am waiting for the next book to read the subsequent now quartet. And then we have the first 5 books of the Expanse series. I will be finishing off Leviathan Wakes at some point this year. Underneath it, we have my Terry Pratchett collection. On the left, you can't quite see behind the pig, is Johnny and the Dead. Not part of his Discworld series, but enjoyable. And then we have a smattering of books from the Discworld series, some in mass market paperback, some in regular UK paperback size. We have Terry Pratchett and Stephen Baxter's Long Mars trilogy, which I will also be getting to at some point. We have Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide. I think that is the bind-up of the first 4 books, which I enjoyed. Ender's Game, which I love. Cloud Atlas, which it's been too long since I read it, and so I can't give a proper analysis on it. I think it was potentially the first sci-fi book that I ever read, which is a weird one to start with. So I think I would like to read it again to see if I enjoy it more, because I enjoyed it, but it was a bit confusing. Then we have The Martian, which is a fan favorite. The movie is also really good. We have Artemis, which I will get to, and Ready Player One, which I also really enjoyed. But I do enjoy 80s culture, so there was no surprises when I read that one. Now, there really is no easy way to film this with my chair in the way, and it's too heavy to move, and there is literally no space to move it in this room. So we will have to make do. Hiding in the left is I Shall Wear Midnight, which is part of my Terry Pratchett collection, which, because it's a hardback, will not fit on the shelf above. We have Empire of the Vampire, which is the only Jay Kristoff I have read, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Definitely be looking at what other things he has written at some point. We have Good Omens, and my Good Omens script book, which I love. I love the TV show immensely, and so I've also got the TV companion, which I am going to read soon before the sequel series comes out on the Amazon Primes. We then have my Neil Gaiman collection. I have not read as much Neil Gaiman as I would like. I have read the 4 smallest books, and the 3 larger books I haven't read. Speaking of large books, I have read To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Paolini. Top quality, can't wait for the books in that series. We have Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, which is one of my tip-toppity books of all time. Seriously, I would definitely recommend the audio, if you can. Potentially maybe even an immersion read, which is where you listen to the audiobook and read at the same time, if you've not heard that term before. Then we have A Deadly Education, Last Graduate, and The Golden Enclaves, a trilogy which I hesitate to say it's on my top series of all time, but it's up there. And then we have I don't know what it's called. It is the Witcher books. I don't know if they are just called the Witcher books. I have read the first one, but I managed to get all of the old covers before the new covers came out with the horrible Netflix sticker. I am pretty pleased with that. I also managed to get the Wheel of Time series as they were going out of print. And then we have my Cassandra Clare collection. Sort of in chronological order, we have Clockwork Angel, was it The Infernal Devices, and then we got the Last Hours trilogy, and then we have the City of Bones, Mortal Instrument, 6 books stacked on top of Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, and then we have Lady Midnight, first book in the Dark Artifices trilogy, which I really, really liked the Dark Artifice trilogy. It is a bit long and it's a bit angsty, but I really enjoyed the sort of whole encompassingness of it all. And then we have Red Scrolls of Magic and The Lost Book of the White. I have read the first one. I will be getting to The Lost Book of the White soon because it's quite short, and I would like to sort of put a pin in it until the last book comes out. And then we have 6 Crimson Cranes, which again is one of the most beautiful books in my collection. Even if it wasn't one of the most wonderful books to read, it was middling. And then we have the Gilded Wolves, which I am debating on whether I want to keep it or not. And then hiding behind the arm of my chair is The Course of Miracles, a graphic novel which I have forgotten the name of, and a Mortal Instruments movie sort of artwork. Well, I don't even know if it's movie artwork, it's just artwork from the series, which isn't mine. It is my partner's, but it lives on my shelf. I'm going to do this one shelf at a time because we are really stretching the limits of my capabilities. Now you can't see it, but on the left of this shelf we have A Breach of Peace by YouTuber Daniel Green, and we have Hyperion by Dan Simmons. If you haven't guessed, this is the start of my sci-fi sort of secondary area. We have some Asimov with Second Foundation and Foundation and Empire. Didn't manage to find the first one at the charity shop. And then we have The Naked Sun. I don't know where that fits in, but I own it. And then we have Brave New World, which is one of the weirdest and most disappointing sort of dystopian slash science novels I have ever read. If I'm not being too dramatic. And then we have Just One Damned Thing After Another, followed by A Symphony of Echoes. I've read the first one. This is a series about time travel. It's quite interesting. I think the first book set up a lot of things, which means I didn't find it as interesting as I would have hoped. But hopefully I will get back into it soon. And then we have some Arthur C. Clarke, though I don't think it's one of his most well-known ones. It's The Ghost from the Grand Banks, followed by some Dick, Blade Runner. I think somewhere else I do own Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, but this is the one with the Blade Runner movie cover. And then we have Seven Ancient Wonders, which I have read. It's a slightly weird book about finding artifacts in ancient wonders to stop an apocalypse. We've got some Douglas Adams, the Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, which is really confusing but really good. And I'd like to follow it up with The Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul at some point. And then we got The Children of Men by P.D. James and some Dan Brown. And then we have some books which I picked up from some random places, and I don't know if I'm going to enjoy them. Let's see if I can get a bit closer. We've got a couple of sort of historical based novels with some David Gemmell and some Clive Barker and Requiem by an author which I have never heard of before. Once again, I am sorry for the shaky cam, We come to you from the bookshelves behind my chair. As you can tell, these books are the books that don't get accessed very often, and I don't really have strong opinions about them. We have the, what are they? The Edge Chronicles on the left, which I have picked up from my partner's brother as he was getting rid of a bunch of books. So I was like, I have heard things about them, so I should probably read them at some point. And then we have Mortal Engines. We've got Hive Academy. Other notable things, we got some Darren Shan. We've got some Vampirates. And we got some Ranger's Apprentice. Now, going all the way down here is where I stash other things like duplicate books or books that aren't mine, or, you know, stuff like that. There's some Star Trek in the corner. If you're into Star Trek, there's a lamp on the floor and a rubber. Getting a sneak peek into what I live like. So yeah, that is my bookshelves. On the walls behind me, I may do a sneak peek at my non-fiction, but I am not quite sure. Here we go, a quick behind the scenes, the bookshelf that you never see. This one doesn't match, it doesn't have as many shelves, it is brown. It leans slightly. If I show you further up, we have got the Twilight series, and another vampire book, my duplicate of the Lord of the Rings DVDs, a couple of other books, which, you know, I have mixed feelings about. We have my classics, a lot of classics at the top. We've got lots of Austen, we've got lots of Charles Dickens. I won't say I've read all of them because I've read not a lot of them. Let me just put you back down on solid ground. We've got more classics. There's some Poe. Very nice copy of Poe. On the middling large shelf, we've got my Harry Potter collection. A bunch of sort of shorter collections of books next to it. We've got my George R.R. Martin illustrated World of Ice and Fire and Rise of the Dragon. Those books are super tall and will not fit anywhere else. Underneath that, we have got my start of my non-fiction collection, where you can see some dinosaur-based books, and you can see some wool just sort of peeking into frame. I won't go any further down because the rest of the books are blocked by my ginormous wool stash, which honestly would just take a bit too long to move out the way. But that's where I keep all of my science books. So I've got textbooks, I've got my Brian Cox collection, so I've got all of his Wonders of the Solar System, Wonders of Life, those sorts of books. I've got a couple more dinosaur books. We've got a couple of books just on nature, and then we got some craft books with some like knitting patterns and crochet patterns for someone in their 20s. I'm a bit of an old lady. So yeah, let me set you back up on my regular bookshelves and do an outro. So there we have it. Most, I think all of my books, there's a couple on the side which I'm currently reading, but that is basically my whole collection. I hope you enjoyed looking at them. I'm sorry if it was a bit weird not seeing my face and only hearing my boring voice. I have been told that my voice is very monotonous, but my face has a lot of expression. I don't know if that's true, but I'm probably thinking it is. So I hope there are some books that you have read and you could probably point me in the direction of. I am always trying to narrow down which books I am going to read next in my collection. I will see you in the next one.